RGG studios have been on a roll for the last few years. Ever since the release of Yakuza 0, they've managed to turn their cult classic games with charm into a franchise that's finally gained the worldwide attention they've deserved all along. The studio's strides stay strong with the release of Judgment, a spin-off title from the Yakuza series. Cast a one-click glance at it and it's pretty easy to see that for all intents and purposes, it's pretty much just another entry in the Yakuza series in all but name. You'll hit a lot of the same locations, hitting a lot of thugs within those same locations, all while distracting yourself with a lot of the same sorts of side activities these games are known for. Judgment's biggest success, however, is finding its own unique voice thanks to a lot of very small touches, all in spite of how familiar it is. A new band of characters and a new way of looking at these familiar locations all contribute to it thoroughly justifying itself. If you've played a Yakuza game before, you pretty much already know what you're in for, but if you haven't, Judgment follows the Yakuza series' formula of being a 3D evolution of old-school side-scrolling beat-em-ups. You'll play a character who uses light and heavy attacks in street brawls, as well as whatever objects they can use as weapons in the environment. The more hits you successfully land, the more you fill up a special meter that lets you use context-sensitive moves called heat actions that are generally either gruesome or hilarious. This lets combat be both rewarding mechanically and visually, and even after so many games following this format, I haven't tired of it yet. A lot of this is owed to the new main character, Takayuki Yagami, having a dual stance combat style that feels unlike anything in the studio's past. He has a crane style which is geared toward attacking clusters of enemies, and a tiger style which is meant to be focused on a singular target. These new combat styles feel so fresh and are emblematic of how Judgment manages to make familiar concepts interesting again. I was overjoyed learning all of Yagami's weird, small new quirks, like how you can run up on a wall and use the momentum of jumping off of it to open up new combat possibilities. Of course, the combat is but just one slice of the pie here, as there is an entire checklist of side content to sample. Piece by piece, most of it doesn't have a particularly large amount of depth. Instead, it's more about the variety and overall amount of side activities to delve into that helps it be noteworthy. Those familiar with prior titles already know to look forward to the usual staples such as darts, mahjong, blackjack, and the batting cages. Also returning are arcade classics into Club Sega locations like Space Harrier, Fantasy Zone, and Virtua Fighter 5. This time in Judgment, there are two new additions to Club Sega that are exciting for different reasons. The first of which is an all-new minigame called Kamuro of the Dead, a full light gun experience that serves as an homage to both Yakuza Dead Souls and House of the Dead. It's digested fairly quickly, but the novelty of playing a new light gun arcade game inside of a new Sega game in 2021 helps make up for it. The other new addition to Club Sega is 1997's Motor Raid, which has never seen a home release until being included in Judgment. The game is a lot of fun. You race motorcycles on different planets and beat up other racers with a weapon to help you win. It's packed with that awesome 90s arcade charm that Sega had in spades back then, and as a Sega nerd myself, I was geeking out over finally having a legitimate way to experience it. Outside of those games, there are a couple of other large new experiences of note. One is basically a single-player board game that takes place inside of a virtual Kamuro show, where landing on different spaces after a die roll sees you taking on special fights, or receiving gifts that you can exchange for spending money in the main game. It's a fun little distraction, helped a lot by this dice-shaped cat who might just have the best dialogue in the entire game. The other big new activity is drone racing. Yes, drone racing, that sees you competing across 5 championships and 10 courses as you customize your drones' speed, handling, and turbo stats to try to take the victory. It even has an online mode so you can race against other people, which made this a surprisingly engaging part of the game for me. I wasn't expecting these to be one of my favorite things about Judgment, but it really is just a lot of dumb fun. The drone itself also plays into the main narrative's notion of you being a detective, it being part of an arsenal of gameplay mechanics you'll employ to stake out buildings or get potential dirt on citizens who are up to no good. You'll notice a recurring theme here, but these boil down to mostly simple affairs that aren't too interesting on their own. There are a couple of simple lockpicking minigames, for example, as well as segments that have you shadowing suspects while trying not to be spotted by them, sometimes ending in a chase sequence that returns from earlier Yakuza titles. Those shadowing portions aren't particularly exciting, but my main issue with them is just that there's so many of them. They accomplish their goal of adding a certain flavor to the game, but they tend to feel like they go on for much longer than they actually last, due to the amount of them and lack of variety within them. Meanwhile, gimmicks that could lead to tense or humorous situations like going under disguise seem woefully underdeveloped in the main narrative. There's a great bit early in the game where you go undercover as a repairman for an AC unit and have to try to successfully repair it without raising suspicion, but the concept seems to more or less peak here and is rarely revisited. It's hard not to wish more had been done with this, as it's a perfect match for this series' sense of oddball situational humor. All of these comical distractions may seem to betray that Judgment has a very serious and engaging story to tell, but make no mistake. As always, RGG Studios and their localization team have wonderfully balanced everything so that there's no tonal dissonance between chasing a man's wig through Tokyo minutes after finding out about a murder that just happened. The main draw of Judgment is absolutely its crime drama tale. As stated earlier, you play as Takayuki Yagami, a lawyer who did something seemingly impossible in Japan's legal environment. He had a suspected murderer acquitted in court. The accused asserts that he found an already dead body in the back of his truck, panicked, and drove out to the woods to bury it. His fear was that his criminal background would absolutely paint him as the killer no matter what, but thanks to Yagami's work, he made it out as a free man. That work is thrown into jeopardy, however, as shortly after the acquittal, the man is arrested again on the count of murdering his girlfriend and setting their apartment ablaze. He swears up and down he didn't do it, but all of the evidence points to him doing so, leading Yagami to turn to detective work after his reputation is tarnished from apparently helping a murderer escape to kill again. The game picks up a few years after this, as Yagami finds himself investigating a recent string of murders where Yakuza members are found dead with their eyes completely gouged out. In doing so, he slowly finds himself playing a much larger role than he expected against greater forces than he ever could have envisioned. It's a pretty great crime drama with a story that had me hooked. I was constantly guessing and surprised through its twists and turns, and what helps bolster this is an immediately likable cast of new characters. The law office Yagami used to work at is filled with personalities, so I couldn't help but become invested in right away, and the threats you clash with along the way were ones I loved to hate. Each character is immaculately cast through and through in the Japanese recording. I also have to give some props to the English dub here. This is the first game set in Kamurocho to have one since the very first Yakuza title on PS2. While that one was entertaining on the merits of how cheesy it was,
I did feel the urge to hit some balls today. I suppose yours will have to do.
This time, the English voiceover is entertaining on the merits of its quality. Before this, I couldn't imagine playing these games with anything but the original Japanese cast, but I'm impressed by how capable the English lineup is here. In particular, Crispin Freeman does a fantastic job as Kaito, your easy-to-love colleague, who has every ounce of charm and charisma that his Japanese counterpart does. You really can't go wrong with either language track here, and credit where credit is due, I did not expect to say that. These characters give a new lens to view Kamurocho through and help the proceedings feel fresh. Kamurocho itself has become a character over the years, always changing from game to game in small ways, so while part of me wants to knock Judgment for not going to a new location, I'd be lying if I said I didn't feel like I was returning home yet again. A lot of subtle changes in Judgment's design really helps these familiar haunts feel interesting again. New UI flourishes, different approaches to cinematography and cutscenes, and the actions of characters with different values and virtues do their job well to make this feel like more of a victory lap than a monotonous jog. Over the course of all of the Yakuza entries, I've spent hundreds of hours in this small game location, and while I'm yearning to see somewhere new, or perhaps even see Kamurocho expand so I can experience more of it, I didn't find myself as tired to be back in it as I expected. Still, though, it's hard not to see the boundaries of this game world and wish I could just finally know what other fun and exciting things are just on the next street over. A big part of why I care so much about seeing more than we get to is because the game is just so pretty. Judgment runs on the same engine that Yakuza 6 and Yakuza Kiwami 2 did, so if you've played those, you already know just how good it can look. It's not exceptional across the board. Some of the same canned animations we've been seeing in these games for years are back once again, but the fidelity of the city and detail on the character models in the game's highly produced cutscenes are a sight to behold. In such instances, these characters are some of the most impressive looking humans in any game out there. The real standout character is the city itself though. Walking through Kamurocho at night as all of the glaring neon lights reflect in puddles on the pavement with the sounds of the city surrounding you is as immersive now as it ever was. It's hard to get too grumpy about being back in Kamurocho again when it's always such a delight to behold. All this said, this return to Kamurocho does see Judgment recognize and double down on one of this studio's finer strengths: its small, simpler side characters. In these games, earnestness and absolute sincerity are as common as the many street brawls you'll find yourself in, with many residents facing slice-of-life struggles that resolve in ways that are delicate yet profound and meaningful. Often you'll find yourself weirdly invested in their plights and feeling fulfilled as you help them solve whatever minor issue they're having. You just can't shake the sense that whoever writes these scenarios did such with a love for what they do. Judgment capitalizes on this by filling Kamurocho with these stories. A large number of restaurants, stores, and even just a few passerby on the street all have a friendship meter you'll fill when you interact with them. As you stop in and see them from time to time, they'll share their grievances with you and ask for your help. From restaurant owners needing to spice up their business model to helping part-time employees get into a committed relationship, you'll do a lot to improve the lives of those you come into contact with. Much like the minigames mentioned earlier, on their own, none of these are particularly deep elements when viewed in a vacuum, but the overall experience of helping so many people as I advanced through the game stood out to me and was ultimately my favorite thing about Judgment. After you've befriended someone, you'll sometimes see them walking around the city too, as opposed to the usual nobody NPCs that have haunted these streets for years. Kamurocho has never felt so personal, believable, and most importantly, alive as it does here. Tied in with the aforementioned notion of Kamurocho itself being a character in these games, it elevated the tension of the narrative for me and made me care more about what was going on now that there was a familiar face everywhere I looked. I really want to see them take this even further in future games, as going back to how things were before Judgment is absolutely going to feel like a step backwards no matter which way you look at it. All this said though, Judgment is a game that I loved a lot. I was thoroughly hooked by its narrative and I couldn't stop thinking about it when I was away from it, which is always a great sign for me when it comes to a game. We've been treated to a pretty frequent string of releases from this series lately, and while I went into Judgment fearing that I'd finally burn out on it, I found myself once again completely invested in every aspect of it, burning to see every story beat, befriend every character, and unlock every skill in these flashy menus. I'm still holding out hope that the next major release from the studio shakes things up more than Judgment has, but at the end of the day, Judgment is still a game I'd recommend to just about anyone. If you have yet to experience a Yakuza title and are looking to hop in on a new entry, Judgment is a very fine place to come aboard and will likely make you eager to go back and check out the main series. Thanks for watching, and if you want more videos like this one, check out my channel for my other Yakuza reviews. And as always, I'd like to thank my patrons for their support, with special thanks to Adrian, Buckles Chucklow, Goldstorm07, Perry, Jeet, Joey, Lewis Jones, Patrick Thompson, Svendelica, That Trav Guy, The Crazy Even, The Legend of Groose, and Wolf Chaoson. Thank you.